kind of introduction to not a round table, but a discussion today. And that's changed a bit. Regarding behavior, vector control, and One Health perspective. So, in the title of this workshop, part of the title was One Health. I'm not very sure that today, yesterday and today, we talk about a lot on One Health. But your contract with university is that you have to talk about One Health at least 50 times. So we are a bit late. And Durant and myself, we will use One Health very, very frequently. And it is not so difficult because what we have seen yesterday and today is typically One Health. Mosquitoes, of course, but other vectors or pathogens to plants, animals, human, and so on. So first I will give some examples and the definition, the official definition of One Health, United Nations definition. And after that, we will have some example and opening the debate. So there is, maybe you do not know that, but there is One Health high-level expert panel from United Nations, FAO, OIE, UNEP, and WHO. So One Health is an integrated approach for optimizing health of people, animals, and ecosystems. And it recognizes that health of human, animals, plants. You can see that plants is not in the sentence before, included in ecosystems, but not animals. Animals maybe are not in ecosystems as well as humans. So it is just a personal point of view. And the environment. And then for having a One Health approach, of course, you need to mobilize a lot of sectors, disciplines, and communities as we are. And at the end of the day, the main objective, aim, is to foster well-beings and tackle threats to health, etc. So we, as entomologists, almost all of us, medical, veterinary, and agriculture entomologists, we are One Health people, by definition, in a way. But we didn't know that. We are. Vectors, arthropods are animals. They are. Hosts, we are working on vertebrates and plants. And of course, the environment of the vectors include not only the plants, but also the soils, the predators, parasites, etc. So it is we are One Health. So this group from United Nations made a very nice picture, as you can see here. So with the sectors and disciplines from environment, human, animals, and plants somewhere, and also One Health approach needs to focus also on society. Everyone is there: rural, urban, communities, inclusivity, equity, regional, global, and then at the end of the day, everybody is happy, healthy, ecosystems, animal, and human, and plants. So it is the official definition, but most of the time, the definition is like this pyramid. At the top of the pyramid, it is human. We are human, so we have decided it is the definition, so it is something, somewhere it is logical. So human health, and then for having a good health, we need to have animal also having a good health as well as the environment and the plant. So it is this definition most of the time. It is the understanding of One Health. But there is also another definition, sometimes interpreted as three components: human, vertebrate, plants in a given environment, and for us in the middle there is a vector. So there are interconnections. But the real definition, which is very rarely used or interpreted, is this one. It is something very, very complicated, a network of relationships between all the components of the environment. And in this slide, I've presented only human, plants, animals, environment is around. And it is that One Health is something very complicated with a lot of interaction. And it is what we are doing every day. And we are going to present a few examples, complementary examples of thinking One Health. I like Aedes albopictus, not only because it is a very beautiful mosquito, as you know, but also because it is almost everywhere. It is scientifically very stimulating. So coming from Southeast Asia, from the forest, century ago, and then spreading around the world very recently during the last 40, more or less for 40 years. Aedes albopictus at the early beginning was in the forest. And in this Southeast Asia forest, there were not a lot of people, human beings, people. So that means that it still has a Catholic behavior. So being able to bite different animals, as you can see here, it is an experiment we have done in La Réunion Island. And when you offer to Aedes albopictus 2 different vertebrate hosts, human and goat, or chicken, human, dog, cat, every time it prefers human, but every time it also bites animals, and sometimes both. So that means that very probably it prefers humans, but it bites animals. So that means most of the time, Aedes albopictus can be a bridge vector from animals to human, from human to animals. And what has been seen is that this mosquito is able to transmit in the wild, in the real life, or in the lab, more than 40 different viruses, arboviruses. In red, I'm not very sure it is red, but at least in red, it is what is transmitted in the wild, in the real life, dengue, chikungunya, Zika, but also West Nile, Zutu, Keystone virus, Protozoa, but also in the lab, you have all the other viruses, which are viruses responsible for zoonosis. So this mosquito, in particular environmental condition, is able to serve as a bridge vector for transmitting viruses to humans. And because we are talking about One Health and agriculture, in Europe, we can see that very, very frequently, less and less, but very frequently. Such tires, old tires, as you know, it is a perfect breeding site for mosquitoes. So that means that insecticide in farms, you may have very good breeding sites for Aedes albopictus. Another example in Asia, it is introduction of ducks into rice fields with the aim of having ducks feeding on insects and weeds. So that means protecting in a way the rice fields, paddy fields, and at the same time being able to fertilize the environment and the rice fields. So it is good for everyone, good for farmers because you have duck, good for the rice, and it is not good for pests here. So the idea is, with the idea of sustainable agriculture, is to replace or adding less pesticides where you have duck for protecting the rice fields and offering food to farmers. The idea is very good and it works, but something which has been forgotten a bit is that there are viruses from birds which can be transmitted by mosquitoes laying eggs into the rice fields, like Culex tritannulecus, for example. Here you have the larvae here. And then you may have birds having the Japanese hepatitis virus coming to the rice fields and meeting the ducks, transmitting via the mosquito the viruses to the ducks, and then other mosquitoes, positive mosquitoes infected by Japanese hepatitis virus can also transmit the virus to pigs and to humans. So it is something very complicated, and it is One Health, because in that case, it involves farmers, animals, human, viruses, and mosquitoes. Another example of the relationship between agriculture, mosquitoes, and diseases is malaria in West Africa. We know that there are many factors involved in insecticide selection and resistance in vectors, and one factor for selecting resistance in mosquitoes is the use of pesticides and insecticides in agriculture, not in public health, in agriculture, because you put insecticides for protecting cotton fields, crops, rice fields into the wild, and there are mosquitoes there which which select resistance under selection pressure. So it is exactly what has been observed in cotton production area in Burkina Faso and Côte d'Ivoire. This slide is from Fabrice Chambre. And you can see there is an almost perfect correlation between the region where of cotton production and in red the frequency of the KDR mutation in Anopheles gambiae malaria vector populations. And the same here, as you can see in Benin. On the right, it is cotton fields, and you can see the frequency of resistance depending on cultures and the use of insecticides. So the more you have cotton fields, the more the frequency of, the more you have resistant mosquitoes. Again, it is a perfect relationship, not correlation, but at least relationship between agriculture and public health. And the last slide I want to present is what Florence presented yesterday. In the cities, there are a lot of green areas, and we want to develop such green areas, urban parks, ornamental plants, gardening and share gardens, and corridors, green corridors, and so on. But every time it is biotopes for several arthropods able to transmit pathogens to vertebrates and plants. And the more you have green areas in the cities, the more you may have vertebrate hosts coming into the cities. Exactly what we are facing in Europe. So, for example, tiger mosquitoes and hosts, not only human, as we have seen, sandflies. We had a presentation on sandflies and rodents, hair, extra. Insects, imitator insects, and many plants, different plants, extra, and ticks entering into the cities. So with diseases possibly transmitted into the cities compared to the past. So it is just examples, a few examples, and we'll present some others. So the idea is for understanding what is occurring, what is happening, and what will happen in the future. We absolutely need to have such a One Health approach for we are not able to manage everything, vertebrate, human, plants, insects, and so on. But we have to build networks of competencies and specialty disciplines. Next to
I think you managed to mention One Health 25 times at least. Can you quickly switch the helping me?
I'm sorry.
It's on the desktop also. There we go. Yes. So I have three more examples to give. They are different than the DJs, and but they also explain a little bit about the science and the multidisciplinarity of the science when you think in a more ecological setting or in a One Health context. So yeah, we have been talking about mosquitoes, sandfly, and tick behavior a lot for 2 days, but it's also mostly, of course, about human behavior, what is behind it, and especially when you want to change something. So One Health, there is a short version of the definition too. So the collaborative effort of multiple disciplines working locally, nationally, and globally to attain optimal health of people, animals, and the environment. And then, like Lydia, you already said, usually with only about humans. How can we treat the disease? But One Health is as old as Hippocrates, before Jesus was born. So on airs, waters, and places. So it is not a new concept, but the awareness is really buzzing at the moment. And One Health is buzzing. You don't get the money for your project if you don't put One Health on your program. And it's also something with circles. There are always circles in One Health. So this is certainly true. So I work in the group of Sander Koenraad, and for the people that don't know him, he's a successor of Willem Takken, and some of you know Willem Takken very well. We used to call it Factor Group, but because we are a buzzing young group, we call it the One Health Entomology Group, because then we get more funding. At least that's what we hope. So the vision of Sander's group is a world in which One Health, a world in which we can quickly respond to threat vector-borne diseases with means of that are affordable, safe for human and animal, plants, but I think most notably sustainable in the context or changing environment. So plants are, of course, in here too. This picture that comes back to Marieke de Zwart showed it also yesterday. We have malaria, so my examples are all malaria based. This is where I did my PhD on the behavior of the malaria mosquitoes. Malaria is on the decline, but the decline halted, and we are relying on bed nets, insecticides, and drugs mostly. But there is a dark cloud coming there, and it's about insect resistance, but also drug resistance is going on. It's happening. So we need help from other approaches, and a couple of approaches that we can look at is house improvement. Antipathogenic fungi, which I won't talk about, but it's an example that has been mentioned. I don't hear a lot about it anymore, but it's like a used to be safe approach also. Larval source management and push-pull. Last 2 days we can add methods, of course. You know, we have SIT and we have sugar-based and we have other things, but this is my example for now. And all these aspects, if we want to implement this in the field, we talk about behavior. So it's nice to have this in this seminar today. So I'd like to start with the first one, is house improvement. House improvement is super cheap if you screen homes, and it has a huge effect on malaria and the mosquitoes that can enter. And when we look at the behavior of mosquitoes around the homes, it is based also what do humans inside and how do we construct the houses. So this design in Africa mostly is that how the houses are built is that there is the eave. This is very typical, but this is also what the mosquito knows. And this is also what the people don't realize, that the mosquitoes are going in there. But there is more attention on this, and people are realizing, okay, maybe we can improve these homes. We can screen them, and we can do this from the community. We can just give them gauze, a netting, and then they can do it themselves, and we can measure the effect. So based on that, we wanted to know what is the effect, and what if we do the screening, what will these mosquitoes do over time? Will they go to the neighbors? And if they cannot go in, or will they go to the window or to the door? When the door is open or closed, we have it closed. But these are factors that come later on also for the other insects. So I'm talking about mosquitoes, but if we do this, what will be the effect of the other insects too? So Aedes aegypti is not what we looked at. So we have cameras facing this experimental home and can release the mosquitoes Well, that's a bit fast. And we can release 500 mosquitoes, and people are sleeping inside this house, and we film what mosquitoes are doing when it's screened. You can look at the poster for the details. So this is one night of activity, and we see a lot of mosquitoes at the eave area. That's where the orange and yellow patches are. This is when the eaves are screened. So the mosquitoes want to get in. You cannot get in, but you keep on trying overnight. So we already saw the nice presentation this morning by Costatini. So that there's continuous activity there. So it makes you also wonder where to put this mosquito trap if you want to trap them away, or where to put your repellent, whatever you want to include. The peak activity is also, we can find like this, and also what we learned from this study is that mosquitoes don't fly to the wall. At least this species doesn't do that. But it doesn't mean that Aedes aegypti maybe we'll go, if we do the same study for the Aedes aegypti, we'll go to the window, we'll go to the door. So that's something. And I will put it in more one-half context, is the mosquito behavior outdoors. Will they go to the neighbors? Where to place the trap? But for the human side, is there a will to screen, and how are we going to sell this to the people? So in this, there was a project in Malawi, it was community-based, 20,000 households, and there were health workers, local health workers in town that were telling the people what to do. So they got the education, and I think that is the success of the, you have to do it locally, you have to involve the community. But who's closing the door? In West Africa, there are countries that the man who's going to bed at last, at 12 at night, he closes the door. The children are already indoors, so they get bitten if there is no bed in place. So these are cultural factors that we have to be aware of. That's one health. Basic knowledge of factors, that's education. And what I said, effect on other factors, is something that we also be aware of. Okay, I skipped entomopathogenic fungi. But I'd like to talk a little bit about the larval source management. There has been talks about it yesterday also. So we start on the left. Larval source management, you can do all sorts of things. So habitat modification in rice fields, irrigation, where's the water, what's the water level? It's also for greening of cities. Habitat manipulation, are we introducing fish or something else? Larviciding, is it in larvicide or is it biological control? The BTI is often mentioned, but has also ecological consequences. And there is some science behind it, of course. Where do the mosquitoes drop their eggs? And this is different for sandflies, where they don't even need water. And at the bottom, if you use BTI, for example, in the community, there's a huge disadvantage that you have to reapply every 15 days, more or less. So you need people that know where the mosquitoes are coming from. You need, these are health workers who want that. And you need to train them, and they need to also be motivated. So this is also education. It's a lot about social sciences and motivating the people. I had a student from Tanzania last year. He was from the agriculture business. He was advising pest crops, and he did a study in Wageningen, and he wanted to do something on mosquitoes. And he was, I think, 40 plus, he's an MSc student in Tanzania. And I had to tell him how a mosquito pupa looked like. I was kind of shocked, because this should be primary school material. If you live in Tanzania, malaria is endemic, this is what you should know when you're a kid. But that is not what we entomologists can do. I think it's what social scientists and teachers use. There are new approaches for engagement of communities, and that is citizen science is also a really nice One Health thingy. People can record, and the app that was shown, the TIC app that I've seen today, super nice. We do it for mosquitoes in the Netherlands, but it's also in Barcelona. It's the Mosquito Alert app. It's really nice. And we also did it in Rwanda, where people made a mosquito trap from a Coke bottle and fermented yeast, and they trapped, it's not the best trap that we have, but they caught 1 or 2 mosquitoes, and they, we at least have some monitoring tools. Yeah, this is the ecological work behind some off-position work, and this is just I will go go fast because I'm not supposed to talk about science. But the idea is that L1 larvae and L4 larvae are different. You know, mosquito put their eggs in L1 larvae, and we took the headspace and we found that no name is really attractive that's coming from the L1, so you can make an opposition trap. But the L4s are deterrent. And we also got those compounds. So you can use this for push-pull studies. This is for Gambi, but of course we have other stories today that we can also do this for Aedes and other animals. Then when we stick to the larvae, there was a concern yesterday by Thierry, which I really liked, and he mentioned I had to modify this by this paper, because this is in the news that he showed yesterday, the negative ecological effects of this indirect effect of BTI and or other larvicidal things. And I had the German example that you already referred to. So the BTI is affecting all Diptera, but generally they say that the dancing, how do you say in English? The dancing mosquitoes we say in the Netherlands. They are targeted, and how do you know it? Yeah.
Water stripes.
Water stripe, yeah. Well, but the indirect effect is you will say, okay, then we will miss those. How bad is that? But the thing is that dragonflies tend to predate on them. And the dragonflies have no food anymore. So they start eating on the newts larvae. And the newts, in their turn, are, of course, they are also a predator for mosquito larvae. So this is an example similar to your ducks and the indirect effect there. So I think this is really ignored. This is a paper from 2019. It is ignored, and it is bad. So this, in One Health context, we should be aware of these things. Same for this review. I think it's a good review. On a very different note, I was also worried for the same reason of all the buzzing words about attractive toxic sugar base. And every time when there is a talk about this, I ask this question, what about the non-targets? And then people say, yeah, we've looked at this, but it's okay. Our major concern is scaling up because it's very effective. I tried to find the articles, but I cannot find the articles about the non-target effects. I emailed Günther Müller last week because I had to give this talk. And I heard from Heather Ferguson that he was working on it, and he did have good answers. But there is no paper yet. So they looked at it, but there's no paper yet. And they are planning to have it. But it's good to be aware of how to put this attractive toxic sugar bait in the field. And he said one thing is the membrane, so that other insects cannot touch it, only the ones with the long proboscis. And when we make it dark, then it's not effective to other pollinators. So I think these are two things that are super important. But I want a paper. You need a paper that everyone is aware of this. Okay, last one, shortly. The push-pull, but then not for opposition, but for putting it next to a house to move your factor away from the house. And this is what was done in Rusinga Island in Kenya years ago already. So based on an odor-based trap, but it's felt in very multidisciplinary research because the people have to maintain their trap and the solar system, and they also need to replace at some point their attractive bait. So it's labor intensive, but the nice thing, people want to keep this because next to the solar panel they also got an LED light and charger for their phone. And actually they don't care about malaria because they don't know what malaria looks like. You know, many people, it takes too long before you die when they have a mosquito bite. But they do like the light, so you want to keep the system. So that is, something to be aware of. It worked. Malaria went down with 30% and mosquito population by 70%. Rusinga Island is not a true island, there's a bridge, but it used to be an island. But it was really effective, but I think now we can do much better if we combine what we learned not only from the mosquito traps, so we analyze what's going on along mosquito traps. We have multidisciplinary research looking at the flight dynamics of the traps, and we found that only 3.4% of the mosquitoes that were attracted to the odor were caught by the trap. So there is a lot there to win, and if we already have 30% malaria reduction with 3%, then we can increase this by improving the trap. And we have students from a design academy, and the designers work with the flight mechanics and the entomologists, that was me, and now we have a trap that is twice as good. At least. If we add heat, then it's 4 times as good. So we want to do this again, and we want to have this huge push-pull thingy again and combine all the things I learned today. But I heard the last story from Nafarnato, I just need to buy the stack tracks. Put it in the trap or on the house, and then everything is solved. So maybe that's just a solution, and we don't need to have this talk, but there's still an insecticide in that, and that's always a little bit risky. So the collaborative effort of multiple disciplines, let's combine all the behavioral lessons we learned from house improvement, the society, whether they want to do it or not, the community engagement, citizen science, and trap development in our case. And of course, last but not least, the talks of today and yesterday, and put it in a one-hour perspective. Thank you.
Thanks, Didier and Jeroen. I would like to bring more input into this debate. Coming from South America, and working with Chagas disease vectors, I think it's a very relevant point to consider what the impact of human activities in the Anthropocene has contributed to explain the levels of problems, at least we have with Chagas disease nowadays. Chagas disease depends on insects that are very, very capable of invading houses and developing large colonies inside houses. So this is a perfect example of nature being destroyed. The triatomins have been in the forest or in the sylvatic environments for millions of years. The parasites have been there for millions of years. And suddenly we stepped in, we destroyed a lot of habitat, and the triatomins don't find food sources because basically the vertebrates are eaten by the humans, the trees and the hiding places are destroyed, and then houses have plenty of blood. And they are very effective and very effective. So they invade houses and they can eat on any of the domestic animals, the synanthropic animals, because that's a component of domestic cycles. You have opossums that adapt to live close or on the roofs of people's houses. And these are the main reservoirs of Biorational MAK'IT. So we are talking again on examples that we step in the wrong place, the wrong way. We allow these kind of situations because marginalized rural populations in South America are being pushed towards these areas that are the least developed and the last options they have to invade. Normally, these are frontier areas of agriculture. So agriculture keeps pushing the forest, first with cattle, then with soybean. So this technical, highly complex technological agriculture, I would call it industrial agriculture. And so these riverine people or people that live on the marginal lands, which are the least productive, are pushed to new land, normally on worse soils that are covered with forest, and people need to cut the forest, and then they are exposed from these areas once they clear the forest. So this is a situation. I would like to add this to the debate, because I think there is a very strong political component on this that we never discuss in science, and I think we are very aware of this in many countries that have this kind of clash, social clash, I would say. So I would like to bring the social component into this perspective. I mean, you've mentioned it, but what we see in countries like the ones I know in South America is that there is a need of conversation between science and politics, because the only way to change these situations is through politics. We scientists are very, very unable to change the rules. We are very, very, our influence is very low. So I think we need to, everybody lobbies in the world that we live, and we need to lobby, and we need to do it openly. And we need to have more engagement into politics, because politics needs perspectives from scientists, and once we are lobbying sector, we are very here because money is always in front of rational thinking. And this is something I would like to add to the discussion.
You are the moderator, so I won't. But anyway, yesterday I think it was you that said it's about poverty. Yes. We need to end poverty. For malaria, this is for sure. If we end poverty, we have better homes. If we have better homes, it will work. So now you say politics, but politics in Nigeria is pretty interesting and difficult. So do we need politics or do we need Elon Musk? Because he has the money.
That's politics.
Nah, I'm not sure.
It is. From my point of view, he's doing politics.
And he is doing politics. Yeah,
Trump is
Twitter,
doing
so
politics.
we bring Trump back.
Different perspectives on politics, but it's fun. So I think we should get involved. I mean, some mud on our feet will not do that.
I mean, as a scientist, we provide data, we provide evidence. We are not 100% sure of what we're proving is right, because tomorrow we can discover something else. But if politicians don't listen to us, because it's not convenient for their economical interest, what they're supposed to do. I mean, as a scientist, we have the obligation to tell the truth and to fight for showing the truth.
What's the point of science if politicians are not listening?
Well, it could be worse. It could be not only not listening, but if you say something that they don't like, you get your funding cut.
Yeah.
That's worse.
Yeah.
So one thing I wanted to mention is that politicians are to be more receptive than you think to hearing from scientists. About 4 years ago, just on a lark, my wife and I, my wife's also a scientist, we invited our local congressman just to come to our labs, have a tour, and talk science. And without hesitation, he accepted. He didn't know who we were, but we just, he knew we were professors at UCSD, and that's part of his district. And he came, and we spent several hours. He had a whole entourage there. And I think it's really useful for scientists to reach out to their politicians, actually invite them to the lab, and talk to them. I mean, now that the statistics here is an N of 1. Well, actually, but still, that didn't have anything to do with funding. I didn't talk about funding or for my lab in particular. But anyway, I want to encourage everyone in lots of countries are represented here to invite their politicians to come to your lab, and you'll find some of them will actually do it.
Yeah, to support what you say, I think the COVID is a good example. The politicians really listen. That's why I tend to think that they tend to listen to the science for the lockdown and stuff like that.
I agree.
Well, not the extreme right.
No,
at least not in the Netherlands.
Not everywhere.
I think exactly the COVID story is interesting in this context. So first, we think that COVID jumped from animals and virus to humans. And even we're not sure about the last one, we know that the camel one is from camels and it kills people. Another coronavirus starts to. I mean, even the first one also jumped from animals. So coronavirus easily jumps from animals, especially from bats, to humans. Then we get this, and then we have all these conspiracy theories that Chinese invented it to kill people or whatever. And then we have the debate about the vaccines. It's very difficult to handle these things for scientists. So, because you need to work with integrated social sciences in our environment, because we are not that good to foresee how people react. Vaccines in France was not well accepted in the time, and more than 50% from start rejected it. Then, with the disease development, people saw the threat, more and more people got vaccinated, and some were more or less forced to, for instance, in the start, buying the nurses. So people got angry about that. Imagine you go to the hospital with a broken leg, you get back with a disease which can kill you. And people protest about that. So it's seen from the scientific point of view, many people are not. So and we are not educated to handle this one. So we need, in the context of one behavior, we need to work with social scientists to communicate science in a way people can understand and respect. Because you also see a decline in respect of science and of scientists, which is true.
Yeah, we have one virologist in the Netherlands, and she's really famous, and I think she's really good in explaining the science to the general public. But she gets also serious threats through Twitter, mainly. And so she cannot go to every conference or alone over the street. It's the same in Belgium, I heard, the virologist. It's just crazy, and she's really, really good in explaining to lay people what's going on. But still,
yeah, I think these things are not free of risk.
no.
We have an example in Brazil. Member of our institution, FioCRUZ, he's a biologist and he was working with COVID, and I guess you probably heard that in Brazil the government was promoting chloroquine to control COVID. And this guy did a huge study and demonstrated that it was hopeless to use chloroquine because it didn't work and it was killing people because of side effects. And this
Are you
guy,
referring to the Lancet paper?
yes, and this guy was really under a lot of pressure after he did that, because all the supporters of the government wanted to basically kill him because he was a liar according to the prevailing government point of view. So these things, it's never free of risk, but well, what's the point on ignoring reality and not defending what we think? Any comments, someone?
Well, two problems. I quite agree with what you say about involving social scientists, and it is something we've seen in working with people, especially with disease systems. That although sometimes we go for the nice averages, the people are not just people. You cannot bring them all at the same time. And so even within the profile of the people we're dealing with, there are actually very, very small pockets that should be very relevant to us as scientists. We recognize them when we're dealing with our genetic variation within populations, but it's not going to recognize them when we're dealing with human beings. And so social sciences will bring another dimension that can make some of these issues very clear. Now, the second thing is that there is occasionally some kind of tension between the methods of social scientists and the methods of natural scientists. The social scientists don't seem to have anything where very precise. They don't seem, they seem to use methods that sometimes have very small n, and they do not express their stuff the way we do. But wait a minute. The methods of social science are quite similar to the methods of animal behavior. If you just care to look, they are quite similar. The methods, the social scientists are also just looking for evidence, and indeed, geneticists have had the idea of genotype environment interaction for a very, very long time, and we don't complain that they don't have a single line that applies everywhere. So the offices are not very different. We make them different when we don't talk to each other. So I think, and I would want to underline the idea of talking more about this. But the last thing I would like to talk about is how does the control work? Bed nets have always been talked about as being, that last mile that is being used in schools. If you really care to check, in many households, you will find parents using, in Africa, including my village, you will find parents using bed nets because there is a bed to put the net on. And then children, nobody ever knows where they sleep because the sitting room becomes a bedroom in the night, and having a bed net increases the time it takes to organize this bedroom and then to remove it. So the penetration, it is not every child that doesn't use a bed net, but penetration is therefore limited because there's a number of people that is openly exposed to mosquitoes that cannot find someone fight. And so these small loopholes, a social scientific eye that is looking at our the people we work with, in the same way we care to look at diversity in our own populations, would actually bring more peace and be able to present it in a way that is a lot more acceptable. Thank you.
Do we have any other intervention? Well, I guess we'll discuss quite a bit. I don't know if you want to add anything else.
Do you get the money? I think so. I think it's time.
You put this in contact with it's fine.
Okay. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, John. Thank you, Didier, for giving this presentations. And thank you, everyone, again, for accepting the possibility of having a symposium together, especially to the speakers that accepted the invitation. And well, hope to see you around. And now